The calling to be a pastor's wife is, to my way of thinking, one of the most difficult callings that there is. I'm not a pastor's wife, and I don't ever want to be one. But it's, I think, a very difficult calling because there are so many pressures that are put upon you for you to be a certain kind of person, to look a certain kind of way, that your family and your husband and your children live basically in a fishbowl. And it's very, very easy when you're in the midst of that kind of scrutiny to begin to identify yourself, to think about yourself in terms of what you're doing, in terms of how well you're doing getting your family to do what they should do, particularly your children, because, you know, if your children aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's going to reflect badly on your husband and on you. And it's very easy to lose sight of who you are in Christ, who you really are, not in this outward obedience even to good rules, but who Christ has made you to be. And you know, that's something that Paul talked about in Philippians 3. And I would just like to read a little portion of that to you and then talk about it. Paul said, "For his sake I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ." Here's the really salient verse. "And be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which comes through faith in Christ, the righteousness from God that depends on faith." So who are you as a pastor's wife, as a woman in ministry, even as perhaps just a Christian woman who happens to be listening to this? Who are you? How do you define yourself? Paul says that everything else he was going to count as loss. His good reputation, his law-keeping, his family heritage, everything about him that he used to put his trust in because of his hard work and wanting to find his identity as being the good Pharisee. He says the most astonishing thing. He says, all of that I count as dung. All of that I count as loss. Why? For one reason, that I may know Christ. And how do I do that? It really begins in some ways in my defining myself the way he defines me, which is that I might be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law. So, you get to the end of the day, and you have your list of all the things you were supposed to do. And let's just say you've had a bad day and you couldn't get them done. And your husband got called away and he was going to help you do some things, but he's gone. And you get to the end of the day and your kids you feel like they're a mess and people are asking you to do all this stuff and you just don't feel like you've got the goods to do it. You don't have a righteousness of your own. You have a righteousness that comes by faith in Christ because he did all the list. He's done it all. He's done everything that needed to be done in his perfect life in your place. And so then you lay your head down on the pillow and you just say, Lord, thank you that everything that needed to be done today has already been done by you, and I will rest my soul in you and remember what you have said to me, which is, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest.